Can intelligence and machine learning bring us back to a world where we can create products that fit? And I feel the answer is yes.
Brands use their own systems. When we went to mass production, brands or the industry came up with a proportionate system because you only need 2 or 3 measurements for that. Oh, golly gosh, how do you do that?
Brands today don't know their customers. Do you really understand the demographics? Do you really understand the sizes? And because they don't, you're in the 40% returns.
I'm harsh against the brand. They've got to decide, I'm putting $1 million, I'm putting $2 million, I'm putting $10 million into this problem. So we're going to talk about garment fitting, why does that fit with AI? I just thought it would be an interesting idea to talk about a real problem in an industry like the fashion industry, where garments don't really fit us well. Today, with today's technology and artificial intelligence, there's an opportunity for brands to solve this issue if they are willing to do so. So I'm speaking to Kathleen Berry today, who's a veteran in the fashion industry. It's gone from design to production, and today she's an expert in garment fitting. Joining her is Mark Harrop, who's also an industry veteran. He spent, since he was a teenager, in the industry, from developing products to running a factory, and now one of the big advisors for the fashion industry. Hi, Kath. Hi, Mark. And I'll just jump right in. Kath, why garment fitting? What drove you to become an expert on it?
I'd like to take you back just a little bit. I know you said Mark started as a teenager, and this is where I started as well. I was 18 and I had this desire to make my own garments, design and make them. Never did I realise that by taking on that task, 6 decades later, what was a passion has turned into an obsession. I did as many courses as I could in dressmaking at the time, all the courses I could in pattern making, fashion drawing. After 3 months, my husband said, "Oh, they should be pretty honest with you, Kathy. They're not too sure whether drawing's your thing." However, I continued my determination, and I actually used some of those sketches when I started a little business I had making women's clothing. So I did all the courses I could, went to TAFE, started my own business, had a business for about 8 years, had great staff. They all had their own little skills. It was only small, but I wanted to get away from just the individual garment. I wanted to find out about mass production, and that's how it all started. We'll talk about sizing and measurements, what measurements to use, and it's a problem that we've got still today. I started at TAFE after getting the experience and teaching in TAFE part-time, having my own business. I then got a position with TAFE, and I was there for 20 years in the clothing field. And I was very fortunate because at that time we were still teaching block making. But it was also an issue because what measurements we were going to use. And being a leader in that particular faculty, I felt I needed to know a lot more about it. So I continued doing various studies. From having my own business, I knew that there was a problem with the measurements within the sizing system. Coming back to the lovely buyers I had in the big retail stores, when there was going to be a changeover from imperial to metrication, the two of them said to me, "Do not change your measurements, Kath. They work well." And that took me on to a little study a study of measurements used in the size coding scheme for clothing women. The measurement were taken in different ways. So I then measured my own people. I took New Zealand's measurement and compared those with 2 French sizes and came up with variation so I could see the Australian standard system just wasn't working. So the cross-back measurement was too tight. And I couldn't work out why the 2 buyers said, "Don't change your sizing system." I'd like to talk about the proportionate system of cutting. The proportionate system of cutting was developed mid-1800s, and it was used on the basis of proportionality. When we went to mass production, or the question was what measurement we're going to use, what size will we make, what will we label garments, brands or the industry had to devise some measure somehow, and they came up with a proportionate system because you only need 2 or 3 measurements for that: bust, height, weight. You could get all the other measurements like your neck, your cross chest, side length, everything from those few measurements. Oh, golly gosh, how do you do that? And that's why I've been on and done a master's on the changing size and shape of Australian women and a comparison of pattern engineering systems, because there had to be a solution somewhere.
You've gone through decades in an industry that decided to go to mass production. And that mass production decision, it's not a decision, they had no choice because they, so many people in this world that they wanted to sell to, resulted in simplification of an issue that we all go through it, right? We all have purchased our garments, and I don't know, 15% of the time, I'm just throwing a number, I'm unhappy.
Like you've just said, and Mark would know, we've got a tremendous amount of ill-fitting garments. We know there's many reasons why garments don't fit. Well, we know the sizing system is outdated. Brands use their own systems, and there's the proportionate system. I had a subjective questionnaire and asked participants to fill it out. Out of 10 subjects, 8 said they would not wear the proportionate system, marked B. They didn't know which was what. And 2 said they would, but the 2 that said they would like a really close fit, I started to question this and said, well, what's the difference? I put one on top of the other, and there it was. The garments were so tight in the proportionate system, I couldn't even do up the back zips on them.
I can see Mark's nodding his head because he's gone through it from the point of view of actually manufacturing garments. And so, Mark, does this, are you nodding your head because going, yeah, we know that I've got these problems, I've had to deal with them on a real basis? Or
yeah, absolutely. We've had this problem for, ever since, hundreds of years, ever since we stopped making garments for the individual. But if you think about it, the big mistake that we made, and it's not a mistake, it was just a need. And in mass production, you have to, whether you like it or not, you simply have to choose an average. You simply have to choose the benchmark, that standard, that your size, your model. And from there, you're going to grade relatively from your base size, your sample, up and down, and so on, relative to that size range. Every brand has its own customer demographics. Some go for a much broader, some go for much narrower, depending on what the brand's needs are. So that's where we've been now for 100 years. Coming back to the main question here is, can artificial intelligence, or can intelligence rather than artificial, can intelligence and machine learning bring us back to a world where we can create products that fit? And I feel the answer is yes. I think we're at a pivotal point in technology where we can use what we call actual and, in grading terms, absolute measurements, where we can use these sort of devices to scan the silhouette. So we get the key measuring points at the neck, high shoulder, low shoulder, shoulder width, chest, so on, all the way down, all those measurement points that we define. One critical point I'd like to mention here is brands today don't know the customers. KYC, know your customer. Do you really know your customer? Do you really understand the demographics? Do you really understand the sizes? And I think the answer to most of them is no, you don't. And because they don't, if you're high fashion, you're in the 40% returns. If you're in a more classic product, slow fashion, well made, well thought out, you probably get lower. You might be in the 20s to 30 range, but you're still in that range of returns. And it's not just returns for fit, it's returns for color, it's returns because you've made it too easy for the world to return in any case. By knowing your customer, we can use machine learning to take this person's body shape, compare that to our standard model, and then from there we can build the algorithms that then will alter those patterns. But when I say alter those patterns, I'm not talking about tailoring here. I think we need to be very clear for everybody listening to this podcast that tailoring is, I may have one side that slopes a little bit more. I may have a portly belly. I may have, dropped shoulders and things like this. And that's tailoring. We tailor for that unique body. In more volume production, we can't afford to do that. So we've got to go for a standard. We go for an engineered block that is mirrored on both sides. So it's like cutting me in half, and then both sides are exactly the same. They're the same slope, they're the same shape, and so on. And that's what it should be engineered. Today, we can use AI. We can build take this scan of an individual. We can build avatars from that are relative to that person. So in the future, there's no reason why I can't walk around here with my own personal avatar in here, where I can take a fabric, I can texture map it onto my avatar.
Is the data available? So from my understanding, what Kath has just said, and also what you're saying, is that you've got a few complex issues. One is you've got different body shapes, right? So you've got and Kath focused on women, so women have multiple body shapes. You've also, she said, that you've got regional complexity, and then you've also got that it changes over time. Is the data available now to be able to now build a system around?
I think, data is, in this context, data is truly the gold. Yeah. Data is it. It's not machine learning. It's not some magic silver bullet. It's data. It's understanding that regional size survey that Kath alluded to. She talks about the Australian survey. We have Size UK was our last survey about 20 years ago in the early 2000s. And I think before that, we were talking about just post-war, the 1950s, another survey. And I think Kath summed it up nicely, and that is between those dates, we're talking a good 50 years between a sizing survey and another sizing survey. And the problem is when people talk about sizing survey, they sometimes forget to mention the quantity of people that we actually measure, whether they do manual measurements or whether those bodies are scanned in body scanner. And if there's 10,000 and they're all based in Sydney or they're all based in London, that's not actually representative of your entire country. So you've got to be careful how you take the body measurements. We're well into building these tools already. When we talk about this, we do talk about regionality. We talk about Japan being Japan, and we've got to make products for Japanese people because they tend to be smaller, the slighter, the slimmer. Americans, bigger, Dutch are the tallest, UK, and so on. You've got to be very, very careful and take those regional measurements. You can't sell systems from survey level.
Because you're leaving it to a body that's not got any real, business point of view. I'll take an example. So my third episode on the podcast, I spoke to Tom Dixon, who's in sales, and they did a campaign for Diageo, right? Big beverage company. Yeah. And Diageo created this campaign where it's Know Your Whiskey, meaning they connected with their customers across the world. Well, they started in a certain region, but then they pushed it on to different parts of the world where they got their customers to tell them what is their favorite whiskey flavors? What's, they did market research by engaging their customers and also use that for their marketing, but also in sales. So they connected it with what's in it for your customer. Like you said, know your customer. Now, the question is, if your system is able, like if I'm able to measure myself, and a brand, first of all, asks me to measure myself, to provide that data for them, where I actually voice my satisfaction or dissatisfaction in their current system, or if they could copy a campaign like that and generate very fast data, and then they're not dependent on a study from 10, 20 years ago. And then on top of that campaign by Diageo was in the background, just analyzing that data, giving results and giving summaries to the marketing and sales department, right? So they can then quickly make a business decision on that. I assume, Kath, that you took a long time to generate data. Studies of different body shapes, getting those sizes in, and you're having to manually go through them. And whereas now, you could potentially just generate hundreds of thousands of different sizes in a matter of weeks or days. I don't know. It depends which brand engages in this kind of stuff.
Well, I think, to me, it comes back, and Mark, it comes back to the basic fundamentals. And things that are the missing elements are a bit about anatomy. People don't know where to put the little marks of here and there. If you're going to use it on computer or individuals, you still need to have some marks to know where to take the measurements from. So they don't understand anatomy. And then it comes to morphology, shape of the body. And females tend to put it on in different places to males, and that's why I thought there was enough study for me to be looking at the individual element. So my studies actually, it wasn't just the drafting system. First of all, we had to have correct measurements. We need to know where to take them and how to take them. And I think this is a big problem today in our educational system. Years ago, when we did our training in TAFE, we had to take measurements. We had to do a draft. Okay, the system wasn't quite up to scratch, but we did it. And by that, we started to look at shapes. And what I'm concerned about at this point in time is that shapes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So basic skills to me are really important. I would love to see my drafting system, the algorithms, to produce a drafting system to a particular shape, to make it easier. I know the industry has to become more efficient, but we don't even have any proper sizing. And where an industry goes out and does their own demographics checks, sure, they can build their products around their target market. But it's the skills that are missing, it's the fundamental, the basic skills in my mind that are missing now.
But can I ask a question, just because I didn't think to ask it before when we met. Is the drawing, using your system of measuring, is the drawing that would go to a manufacturer different to what the drawings that they're producing now? Is there any, is the shape the same, just different measurements, or is there actually a shift in actually the drawing?
Sorry, Joe. Well, everyone does their own system, and this is the problem. There's nothing wrong. We all think our system is really good, and there's so many systems. I've got 80 books out in the cupboard here where I've studied various systems. It's like the human body. No two systems are the same. And that's where when we're producing or manufacturing anything or building a house, it doesn't move. We've got human variation, and we have to cope with that to get garments to fit a variety of different shapes. So
can I again, sorry to keep interrupting, because it's to both of you this question. So you telling me that the drawings and the system that Zara is different to H&M, is different to Mango, is different to, like, they're all kind of slightly different, and what's going to manufacturers is different.
I believe they are.
Really?
I believe they are.
The reality is they are. The reality is the brand feels it knows its customer. It has a method. Method is often brought in by the senior, technologist in there who, it's how they've been educated and so on. I think getting back to the point of this podcast is, are we at a point where we can automate that process and fill some of the gaps that Kath is alluding to? And I think the answer is yes. We can define how to measure. We can automate that process. The critical point is that the people fueling machine learning need to understand the core craft, need to understand the morphology of people, need to understand how women in particular change from teenagers to young women to old women, how that body morphs, how that body shape changes. And for each of those age groupings, there's a different shape. And there's a different shape for men. Men's hips don't move as much as women's hips and things like that because of, obviously, women have babies and their hips don't come back to the original size and so on. And all of those things should be built into the machine learning systems. Now, we have arrived at a point, like I said, whether you go on a very expensive scanner and you stand there in your T-pose and you keep staring, you measure, but like Kath says, you breathe. Human beings can breathe. And just taking that chest breath, you're already moving a centimeter. You're asked to keep it still. You're asked to not breathe. And so, we move fractionally. Now, the good news, that's not a bad thing. The good news is that these devices today are within about 4 millimeter accuracy, so about half a centimeter around my silhouette. If we know that, we can build in to the algorithm that tolerance. And when we're building patterns on a body, we're not building close, perfectly fitting, tight garments. We consider this. We consider the type of garments we put on. We consider the allowance. We consider the fullness. We consider much more than just shape. We know where to put the darts. We know how to create the three-dimensional. We know that the underarm, under here, it goes in, biceps and everything. So machine learning is very, very capable of now taking us back to the world where we used to twirl on an individual. Imagine that now the avatar is Mark. And on Mark, we can now lay patterns, we can now create panels, we can draft on Mark. The great news about that is we're not drafting on a size survey that was done at a university for girls at the age of, 18 to 21, 22, when actually the world is made up of, women who work at home and women who work in the factory and girls and so on and so forth. It's a much broader demographic. It's different in different parts of your country, never mind the world. And I think we're coming to a point where we can use the technology to get back to that individual, getting to mass customization, where we customize for each individual on a mass level. So it's an in-between between mass production and tailoring. And if we do this and we do it right, and I believe we can now, all the technology's lined up for us. We can now do it. We can deliver products where we'll dramatically reduce the returns because, I trust me. And I know that maybe in 5 years, I'm a little bit bigger or smaller or whatever weight-wise. I'm not that person you scanned or you took a tape measure to 20 years ago in Size UK survey or the Australian size survey. We change. And this thing, the great news about this is every 1 or 2 years, maybe I take another shot at myself and say, compare my avatar before. Have I gone smaller? Have I gone a bit larger? And therefore, garments need to change to my size.
Yeah. So why have the brands, not the brands, but there are brands who are innovative. Zara, for example, with their very quick supply chain, right? Because they control their own supply chain, or at least 50% of it is very controlled by them. Are they in the background investing into some kind of system? Because now I understand you saying to me about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, Mark, why it's the holy grail. I mean, if you compare it to CNC milling has had AI in it for decades, right?
Absolutely.
To the point that it knows what tool and what path to take and how to reduce the amount of friction keeps on the tool, on the carbide tool that cuts the metal for longer, right? So they're thinking about how to make their customers more efficient, and they're using AI to figure out the best path to cut the block of metal to create the part. Why are we not using AI to say the best way of cutting this fabric is in this way to provide for optimal fitting?
As I've alluded to it, I've alluded to myself, I'm already working on this, and I've been working on this for a while. And the angel is in the detail, not the tail, the angel. And the angel is the data. And we've got to get that data right. We've got to get the foundations right. Just like Kath said, building a house, you've got to build it right. You've got to build those foundations. If we get those foundations right on how do we take these measures on a person, how do we get that person's data in the three-dimensional scan? And if they don't want to use a body scanner or, a device like this, then how do we take a 2D flat image and show them how we want them to fill their measures out to give to us, to the brand? And just to come back to your question, Gore, I think the industry is at the point now where it's starting to investigate. I think there are some smart brands out there that are already looking at this. There's some surprising companies like Google, who've bought, a few years ago, they bought Body Labs. Now, they didn't buy Body Labs for the sake of it. They bought Body Labs to understand the customers coming to their site and to work out how to use it to build a product that is more of a made to measure. Only this week, we saw a press release that's come out that says Lectra have invested in a machine learning company for this particular subject. So they bought into 6 Atomic, using AI for this exact subject we're talking about. So the seeds have been sown. The industry is starting. The technology is aligned. The most important thing, we need experts to guide the foundational requirements for.
But just let's make up a brand that says, okay, Kath, I want to use your system. What are their processes? What are the change in their processes today, from today? Is it that they have to, is it all across from design all the way to manufacture, and even the manufacturer has to change? Because you're introducing, I can't remember how many body shapes it was, but it wasn't just a small, medium, large, extra large, of course, with one essentially body shape. You've got multiple body shapes, and within those body shapes, you've then got variations, right? What does it do to their costs? What does it do to their processes? Is it too complex for them to suddenly say, wow, this increases my costs to get to product and get to market by too much? What would you be asking of a brand to do?
I don't think so. I think it's looking at garments, looking at garment fit, understanding your customer and putting them at the center of your business. It's about saying, you know what, let's rebuild the foundations. Let's rethink this through. Let's get the right methodology. Let's get the right benchmark, the right starting point for the customers and demographics that we serve. do we work on a country level or do we work on an international level? Or by answering those questions, you increase the complexity of the answer, but the answers are there and the opportunities are there. But I think we've got to bring fit into the center of the business, and it's got to be cared for. Whereas I think we lost that for the last 30, 40 years of mass production. We've sort of said, just make it quick.
Yeah.
And we've almost thrown out that area. It's not carefully managed and make people feel like you're making something for me.
Yeah.
As Mark said, we can combine, I do believe we can combine technology, but it needs some traditional skills to go with it. And coming back onto the international, my drafting system can be used for anybody or anything. The shapes can change. It's just that you need to know where the fat tissues are, the adipose tissue, the muscles, that's all part of the morphology of the shape. So if we're going to sew for a brand that's only going to make 2 sizes, and there is a brand that does that, 2 or 3 sizes, extra small, small, and medium, and that's all they do. And then one of my clients and customers was so excited about the book, she is starting to make for the larger sizes. She said, I loved your figure H, and that's what I'm going to produce my sizes on. And another one says, okay, so now how she would go about it. And I said, well, tell me what your target market is. Show me who's coming into your store. Identify your target market. Are you sewing for the slim, medium? Coming back onto 3D body scanning. It's fantastic. I was so excited 3 years ago when we didn't have to use a tape measure anymore. But when I got my scan back and compared it to the manual measurements, not of one person but of 10, there were variations just in the circumferences. So there may need to be, as Mark said, some more work done on it. I do feel eventually we can combine the two and to help the industry, and so we don't get so many garments ending up in landfill, and we'll have our customers will be happier. How do we build the basic formula? People coming out into the field and those in the field need to know, as I said, and I'm sorry to repeat it, but anatomy, whether you're going to do it in the computer field, getting your customer ready or client ready for landmarking. I do landmarking for the individual, but my landmarking is going to be different to the landmarking for the computer, so I'm told. If there's a solution to that, I mean, how to take measurements. Why do you need to take them such a way? It's not.
Absolutely.
And the measurement
Can you teach her? Because I think this method or this kind of change has to go to e-commerce first, because that's where your interaction with the customer is more direct. Ordering online is huge now, right? So, and a lot of the dissatisfaction comes from there because they're ordering online and then just returning it. So they're just trying on because the brands have allowed for this.
But are they making? Sorry, Gore, I'm going to butt in. Are they making to size or to shape?
No,
and
right now,
problem.
Right now it's small, medium. It's just basic. But what I'm asking is, am I able to use your method and understand easily to say, okay, I'm going to measure myself, not even scan with the phone like Mark says, but can I measure myself to say, here's my measurement from here to here, here to here, here to here, and plug it in for the manufacturer, or at least kind of connect it to the right drawing or the right garment that's ready to be sold to me. Can I do that? Are you able to kind of communicate to me that within 2 minutes I give you my size according to your system?
Gore, the answer to that is yes, and we've alluded to it just a few minutes ago when we said, you can take a 2-dimensional flat image, a silhouette of a body shape. We know the landmark points where to measure. We define how to measure. Sometimes we don't stand like this in real life. We have our arms in different shapes. Sometimes we're in a sitting pose, sometimes we're in a standing pose. So there's different requirements. But yes, we could put those in a two-dimensional way. If somebody's less technical and just, these are my measuring points, that will then point you to the nearest size from on that e-com site. Or, like I say, better still, we can use the scanner that scans our silhouette and tells us where those landmarks are. And those landmarks can be attached to a methodology. So we can take what Kath is talking about, where we say, this is our best practice, this is how we should do it, this is where the landmarks are. Now put them on the scale so that the two match. And it's about those foundational skills, getting that right. And I think what Kath is saying, I totally agree. It's a different subject though. Is on the education front. Now, anybody coming into this industry needs to be educated in a certain way about body, about body shape, about the about the methods and so on, and get deep into that as opposed to just a quick, few hours on it and that's enough. You tick the box and move on, and then.
But sorry to jump in. I've been thinking about this, Mark, because and Kath, because both of you are involved with education. Yeah, Kath, you're a teacher. Mark is also a teacher in a different way, but he's there advising universities, and
I'm on the board of Manchester Metropolitan University as well, so I am.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm going to say something that maybe just kind of pokes a bit of at you guys, where I just think that the university method or going to education is really important. It's always been important. However, that takes way too long to change anything. This change can only come from brands. It can only come from the business community that will say, oh, this has huge potential. Or the regulator can also play a part, because if the regulator says, okay, you guys, you cannot throw 30% of your product anymore. You can only throw 5%. And now they have to figure out how to do that, right? And this method solves that problem in a big way. Because until students become influencers within a brand, it takes too long. I wouldn't even talk about the big brands. It's how do you get medium, because I said this to you last time, Kath, when we first spoke, which it's the small and medium brands that are willing to try and willing to compete with the big brands to eat into market share and satisfy customers, because they've got that mindset where it's going to move the most. So it's actually training people who've already been trained that will accelerate this, but trained with an open-minded thinking and understanding that today there's a method, but also a tool like artificial intelligence. I mean, literally a brand could go to Tom Dixon's company, it's called Attest, and build a campaign just like Diageo did to generate data to then say, okay, I know for these products I'm going to test with my customer base that I already have, and I now get data from them. You're telling me it's easy to measure myself and show what my size is. So for me, for example, I'm between somewhere 32 and 34 in my jeans. It's not exactly 33, but it's generally around that. And also my length of legs, I've got shorter legs than a normal 33 would have, an average 33 would have. So I would love to say, okay, this is the length of where you say that the points are. And now for the brand to say, okay, we know what jeans to sell you. I just think to go to the young, to educate at the universities is important to start and do it. But the effect of that will take too long. Yeah.
Sure. I see there's two different things here. When you go to university, and I found that out with my 2 degrees, that university don't tell you how to do it. They tell you how to research and find information, experiment, and do comparisons. I look at education and training as being just a little bit different. And this is where I'm looking at. There are people in the industry who have got techniques, systems that they can use. But what I'm using is you can use the same system for a variety of figure types. I've only identified 5, but if I was overseas or wherever I am and I could see a body shape and the algorithms were done to my drafting system for that particular shape, could do that draft on the computer without doing the draft manually. Now, going to come back to your trousers. Levi's used to make short length, medium length and long length, but apparently I've noticed now that when my husband buys trousers, they're only one length. They don't. So there's material wasted there. But there again, with computerization and AI, machine learning, you can find out from customers how many have had to have their trouser lengthened or shortened. So
this is where what I call mass customization comes into play. We're talking tailoring again, we're talking about some basic changes. So you can have your 31-inch waist or your 32-inch waist, whatever it is. You can also have your exact length, leg length, from the measurements you are, not the measurements Levi or Wrangler or anybody else see it as fit, as the average. You're not proportional. You are gore. You are your waist. You are your leg length. And in the future, machine learning can give this to the brands. We can build it together as a mass customization. We can make more smaller orders and cut, 5,000 pair of jeans that fit gore, but they also fit another 4,999 people that they're exact same as gore, and so on. So it's more. It's not exactly made to order. It's not tailoring, and I want to be very clear on that. But what it is mass customization, which fits masses.
Yeah.
For that, like Kath just said, you wouldn't have that waist because they're going for the longer length that fits everybody's. But it means having them shortened, and that's okay if you're short like me. Feels good. When I get my G's, I put them on and they fit first time.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about just have them taken up.
If I am outside the norm, or not the norm, sorry, if I'm statistically in a very low range of people that need a certain size, then potentially I might be dissatisfied, right? But what we have here is an ability for data collection, data analysis, to be able to say, I'm going to satisfy a bigger range of people. So, because I'm trying to also understand how this, my instinct is saying this would be very difficult brick and mortar retail to deal with.
It would if it was manual, but not if it's machine learning.
Right.
Machine learning.
But they have to, so they'll have to stock a variety, bigger variety of sizes.
Exactly.
Now, if I'm in London, in Islington, living in Islington, in London, for example, or any city for that matter, whatever, that retail store would have data of what's around them and say, okay, we're going to store. You see how complex it can become. And it's like, I'm trying to think like a brand and think, okay, for me, the e-commerce is the obvious one because that is a warehouse full of sizes that just releases off, can send off garments that would more often than not, by a big majority of the time, satisfy the customer. And that's where I would start as a brand. So
I'm going to disagree and say I would start by knowing my customer. Okay. I want to know my customer. I think we have the tools today to know your customer far better than we ever have. And not relying on Size UK, which is 20 odd years old.
No. What I meant is that the e-commerce, I knows my size, but when I'm ordering online, I'm going to get satisfied because it's coming from a warehouse that has all these ranges of body shapes with all the sizes in stock.
Well, no, it won't, because if that would be inefficient. What if we made all that stock and we made a giant warehouse that fitted, every single size, but we've ordered too much of that one, size that's right on the edge of that size curve. No, what we want is more timely. As you are clicking away on those e-commerce sites is gathering this data, it's clustering it, and it's saying, right, we have this, we've now reached 1,000 of these people clicking on this product and these sizes. Therefore, make 1,000. Let's make 1,500 of these because the interest is there. These are coming for these sizes.
So also, production, manufacturing has to be quick. Like it has to.
Absolutely. It's got to be part of the value chain so that we can then move those products around quite quickly, but in the correct size way. That way we don't need ginormous warehouses. We just need to understand our customer. We need to understand the clusters of sizes that are coming towards our site.
And isn't that where machine learning would come into it, or artificial intelligence?
Absolutely. Yes.
But you'd get the length. Now, there's two things here. There's height. There's short and tall and medium. Wampum says that if you're 5 foot, you're a dwarf. If you're 5'6", you're medium. And if you're over 6 foot, you're a giant.
Well, I'm in the low medium.
Anyway, but I think you're right there, Mark. AI and integration can help a lot finding out data, e.g., how many garments.
Yeah, and I have to go because I'm jumping on another couple of hour call now. So I have to leave you. I'm going to leave you with this thought then. Let's not call it AI.
Yeah. Let's
just focus on machine learning, because this
machine learning is probably a better way of going. Yes, I'm just looking over here.
Exactly. For me, this is about getting the algorithms right. This is about the maths right. This is about the base and the foundational structure to get it right. This is about using smart technology in a very, very smart way. But the exciting thing for all brands across the world is we've now reached the point where work has already started, and we're moving from this generative world of, let's call it, any image, any picture, any product, to another world, which is this machine learning world, where we're working on accuracy. We're working on accuracy of fit. We're working on accuracy of data, whether that's material, it's stretch, all sorts of different parameters in there. But the net result is those return rates, whether you're in the 40s, brands listening to this, you're in the 30s, you're in the 20s, they're all still too much. We can drop that down dramatically, but it takes hard work. And
as we start
Can I just change that, Mark, to say what I was meaning was the new world of technological advances, including digital technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So you're right, I think we're on the same wavelength there.
I do have to apologise. I do have to jump now. It's Gore, Kath, it's always a pleasure. Kath, you and I, we go back a long, long time. Wonderful talking to you, and Gore, likewise. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk to you today.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, and we'll soon wrap up as well, Kathleen. See you, Mark. I think that basically, I hope brands will reach out to you more and more. And if I was to message to a brand, is if you don't know how to go about it, then actually reach out to the three of us. It's actually reach out to Kath, reach out to Mark. Obviously, Kath, I'll put in the description of the YouTube video your website and your contact details. So
thank you.
Obviously, you've got a website where this information is there for sale and also for free in some respect, where you talk about your system and your research for brands to use. And I think, like you said, like both of you have said, there's really an opportunity, because what I've understood from you is actually it's not so complicated. It's just a question of figuring out how you get from measurements to final product in the most optimal way, and then I believe that if they were to start working on some products to begin with, and then ramping up as they understand this, the change in processes, that they would actually succeed in being more, creating better product.
Yes, I agree with you. When I did a 3-day workshop interstate a few years ago, and we went through bodice, sleeve, skirt, the foundation box, how to measure, morphology, the whole works. And then I said, okay, you've all got to now draft a particular figure type. They did that, now do another one. And then I said to one of the girls, she'd finished, I said, well, look, I'd like you to draft that pair of trousers in an hour. It's the first time she'd seen it and done it. She came back and said, I've done it in 40 minutes. So she'd done the front and the back trousers. She knew how to do it. And where I'm at, Gore, is there's passing on some knowledge and skills. They're basic knowledge and skills. They're not hard. They need a bit of time. And I dare say in 3 days, doing a 3-day training program, and with the step-to-step instructions that I've got, I think we could get people to make some pretty good foundation patterns, get them aware, have the awareness that there are different shapes. It's not just a size, and I don't make just to a size anymore. I make to a shape. Teaching my system, they have to have the measurements that I am using. They have to follow some guidelines, some rules. I set up some guidelines and a method, and if they want to then they've got their master blocks done, and the industry can then take those master blocks and put them on the computer and put them out. Someone, they might want to make different varieties of garments. Well, they make the blocks up and they put them in their library of assets, so they've got something to build and work onto without having to start right from scratch. We don't seem to have, there's not very many places who have a good fit today. Mind you, a lot of garments that are produced are also copied, and goodness knows what blocks they're using. And I'm really quite concerned with the proportionate system.
As we wrap up, I think the final message is that because of technology, even manufacturing has that improvement of technology, right? So quick cutting systems of fabric and methods of production that allow for the brands to solve this issue of garment fitting and satisfy the consumer market better. So,
yes, and definitely got the tools with it's digital now, technology.
Yeah, it's now about willpower, and hopefully, as a final statement, I think it's a call to the brand to get their act in gear. It's to show some desire to change this and solve this issue. So I hope.
Yeah, I think to be prepared to perhaps look at what they can do to improve where they're at.
No, and to pour in resources. I'm harsh against the brand. They've got to want to do this. They've got to decide. I'm putting $1 million. I'm putting $2 million. I'm putting $10 million into this problem. They actually have to make that decision. Because if they don't make that decision, it just means that it's let's keep going as we are. I don't care that we're throwing 30%. I don't care that landfills are filling up with. I mean, there's, we've been talking about this. We haven't touched on sustainability, but it's always been there. Yeah, just stop with the waste. It's to the brands. It's the message.
Well, that is, and if you can get a good garment fit, follow through some basic principles, know your target market, and apply the tools of the trade, I'm sure we can minimise a lot of garments going to the landfill.
Yeah. So as a final statement, that's great. Thanks for joining us, Kath. It's been a good conversation. And
it's been great. Thank you very much. Lovely to chat. Gore, anytime, give me a buzz.
Thank you. So thanks, Kath, and thanks, Mark, for joining me in this conversation. Garment fitting is a big issue in the fashion industry, one that the brands need to take seriously. Some are. I mean, it's harsh of me to say they don't, but it just knowing the industry, knowing people in the industry, not enough is being done. And they have an opportunity now with artificial intelligence and machine learning and smart companies and smart people to solve this issue very quickly. There's a new way of creating a product, and they should reach out to people like Mark. Of course, they always do reach out to Mark and Kath, and also reach out to even us three as a group, as a team, could easily advise a brand on which direction to take. If you like this video, click the like button and do subscribe to hear more such conversations and how artificial intelligence can connect with business and industry and improve the way we do things. So thanks for listening in, and see you next time.